This is just an example of government agencies running amok without thinking about the repercussions of their policies. And it's also an example of terrible legislation like that didn't contemplate the reality of its effect on all of us.
Speaking about fake news, so there was a big story about how tenants will have to pay their foreign landlords tax bills, right? And that there was like one case that happened where the guy happened to have to pay it. So now everyone's going, oh my gosh, withhold 25% of your rent. So if you got a foreign landlord and all that kind of stuff, and then the government just comes out.
Is that fake news?
Yeah, they're just like, what are you talking about? We're not collecting money from any tenants. There's just one case that happened. But of course, people hang on to whatever bit of headline news they can get.
It's always been the law that you had to withhold 25%. Technically, if you go, let me just put this out there. Yeah. I bought my PS5 from some dude out of the back of his truck at a Shoppers Drug Mart at 1 a.m. in the morning. I did.
He was an authorized distributor.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Because PS5s were hard to get and he had it. And I paid him cash.
You can get weed on every corner now, but a PS5, you need the back alley at 1 in the morning.
It was hard. So technically, I had to pay HST on that. And technically, because you have to pay HST on everything that's not exempt. And technically, I had to ask him for a statutory declaration stating that he was a non-resident of Canada. And if he stated that he was a non-resident, I would have to withhold 25% and remit it to the federal government. Technically, that's the law, right? Yeah. Now, good luck to me. I got my PS5 because I didn't do those things. But that's what the law is. And it was always the law that you had to do that for every payment, rental included. The CRA is a bunch of... I've just had to do taxes, so I'm not feeling particularly charitable towards these guys. Those
wait till you write the check.
Don't understand the repercussions of their policies. Stating this to one person and going after this one person has huge effect because who's going to do that? A tenant is not empowered, particularly residential tenants. They're not empowered to act vis-a-vis a landlord and say, I'm withholding 25%. Good luck to you. Like, what are we? That's not a reality that any of us can abide by. And so the CRA has put us in an impossible position because the law is residential, commercial, whatever it is, you have to withhold 25% if someone's a non-resident, which many people are, particularly in the investment communities. Practically no one's going to do it. And so the only relief here is going to be there will be some form of interpretation bulletin exempting, I'm sure, very soon, residential rents from this obligation because it just doesn't work. And I'm pretty sure in the commercial space, lawyers will work it out. If you're a sophisticated commercial, there'll be a way of working it out. It won't be an issue. So
not everything on TikTok is true.
It caused endless problems. This is just an example of government agencies running amok without thinking about the repercussions of their policies. And it's also an example of terrible legislation like that didn't contemplate the reality of its effect on all of us.
It's a 100-year-old law. And so basically they were saying that if there's some sort of business relationship between the tenant and the landlord, that's what this case was. I'm not sure exactly what it was. That's why the guy had like 6 years of this, 25% withholding tax to pay because of his landlord being a non-resident. But they were basically came out and said, like, we are not collecting, nor have we collected from anybody in the last 10 years, this type of withholding tax from any tenants.
Right. It's not a 100-year law. It's actually Section 116 of the Income Tax Act. It's called the Withholding Act legislation. It actually came about in the 70s, but we all deal with it. So if someone's a non-resident for residential sale, we actually withhold 25% or 50% actually is what you're
part of the pre-printed APS.
That's the exact same law. That's exactly what's going on here. It's for every payment. It's not just for real estate payments. It's just practically we only deal with it for substantive issues, and rent was never seen as a substantive issue until the CRA decided in its infinite wisdom to make it one.
CRA and infinite wisdom. I love it. In the same sentence, there's enough of them out there. Did you see that report? There's like 60,000 employees in the CRA and there's 70,000 in the IRS. And there's a little bit of a population difference between the two countries, but that doesn't mean that our numbers are off in the wrong way. It might also be that the Americans are off in the wrong way. Remember that there is an actual political movement that when they get into power, when the Republicans get into power, they cut the IRS significantly for political reasons. And that's not to say, by the way, that Canada doesn't have way too many people working for the CRA. Frankly,
The amount of government expansion that took place in the past 3 or 4 years should be enough to make anyone sick. I'm talking across the government, period. Yeah. The amount of government contracts, don't even get me started. Like the fact that we've actually extended third-party contracts through the moon at endless cost to the taxpayer, whilst at the same time massively expanding the civil service. I mean, like there's just been no oversight to the process over the past several years. I don't know what happened in COVID, but we lost control totally of contracting, hiring, and everything else. But it doesn't in any way mean that in the States, there isn't an opposite and equally problematic tendency to cut vital services like the IRS. In fact, it's very easy, particularly if you are in the 1%, to avoid paying the taxes due and owing because the IRS simply doesn't have the regulators for it. So the happy medium is probably, as always is the case, probably somewhere between Canada and the US.
Like, comment, and subscribe if you got anything from one of these clips. And if you want to see some more, press something on the screen here. Boom.
That was good.
That was good. I like that. That was good.